So good afternoon, everyone. We are in our first quarterly meeting, January, February, March of the year. I want to start with verifying if the meeting was properly noticed, please.
Yes, we.
Okay. Verifying quorum. We have three and we have
And one online.
two online. And, so this is a call of order. We're going to start with our information that we have here to discuss with you guys. The first thing we're going to discuss is separate entities updates. Which would be everything that we have with CCD, that we're going to, anything that they have not taken care of. If you have noticed or they haven't answered, if you have any information.
ECD.
ECDD is water, CCDD is the ones with the trees and. Okay.
Yes.
So this month, we didn't have major situations with them here, although they did not put back the trees there, so I don't know
No,
what would happen with that.
they keep not getting back to me. Keep on it and I get nothing back.
Okay. Maybe we can send them a little note.
What was this concerning? I didn't hear.
The two trees that
Oh.
came down that they chopped and then the root balls were there, the root balls
And
kind
they
of came
had-
down.
Yeah, they had replied to me that it was going to be done in February.
Mm.
Yeah, Lauren had indicated that too, but
Is this in front of this building? or-
Yeah, this
Yeah.
one is
Oh, okay.
the trees.
Okay,
yes, the ECDD.
Yeah.
CCD.
CC,
Oh, CCD,
CCD.
that, is,
you're correct.
yes, yeah, that's currently between the general councils on the ownership of those trees. So it is probably going to take some more time. It's not forgotten, but it's moving.
Okay.
There's some debate on the ownership of the easements on CROA owned land versus non-CROA owned land.
And I understood from the emails that went back and forth that finally ECDD said that they would replace the trees. I mean, that's the email I got.
CPP might have said that, yeah, it's probably still,
Because they.
they're probably pausing, they probably said that.
They
And
were
now
fighting
this
back and
is,
forth. So-
yeah, now going into some further discussions, they'll probably pause to see if they need to do this.
So seeing this, why isn't it identified clearly as to what CROA is and what ECCD is? Why is that not clear?
That is with the general councils of CBD and CROA at the moment to create those clear lines.
It is confusing. ECDD, CCD. We call them the what, the letter soup. So,
Do they have an estimate as to when they would have that resolution?
It's just starting. It's
Litigation.
looking more like those trees will be in the responsibility of CROA,
Okay.
which is why, yeah, looking at how the documents, a lot of the governing documents were written, it's looking like it is going to be leaning more towards the responsibility of the ownership and of CROA. Now it comes down to the replacement of the tree. Is that who, CCDD or CROA? So it's in discussions.
But in any case, those two trees are not part of the town hall.
No,
correct.
So,
Yeah.
and yeah. So
because that
is
we started with it because it came to our attention, but it's, you know, it's a separate entity.
So whether it's
Okay.
ours or the.
It doesn't affect.
In the discussion items, we have the, oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, you had said for ECDD, I also have something.
Yeah.
So I have the water bill
Mhm,
for Q3 of 2024.
mhm.
Which was extremely high. It's, I've done all the comparisons of that year and 2024 against that quarter. That quarter was extremely high compared to everything before and after. To the tune of, if you compare it to 24, it's $5,300 more than what we actually paid a year later.
Hmm.
So it's not necessarily that, to me, it would seem that it's not necessarily that the price went up because there were more townhouses, because it actually went down. So I know that that's under investigation. And the last I heard from Lauren was there was an audit that was gonna be done. So do you have,
The results, they're looking very in line to the other service areas that are also seeing an inflation in their rates on 2024 to 2023. So the audit shows that, while yes, what you're saying is correct, that is in line with what we're seeing across all of our water rates.
But it was
just for that quarter?
huge, just for that. Yeah.
Yeah, it made up 50% of the 2020, what we paid for 2023. Q4 was 50% of it.
Mhm.
So what you're saying is other service areas during those 3 months also, okay,
Exactly.
so this is something that's still being researched and potentially. Okay.
Yeah.
No ETM, not here.
And right now it's looking in track, but I mean, I'll make a note to look into it further.
Can I
Yeah.
jump in here too? So I see all the financials too with the water and maybe with the exception of one service area, I concur with that statement. Every single service area is running over budget right now with
Yeah.
water. And I think if you look, I even have seen like some chatter around St. Cloud and Toho. It seems like this is like a larger issue than just celebration, at least what I've seen, just around kind of the overall water usage. And so it definitely is something that we're seeing kind of across the board.
And that's what I was trying to clarify with you, Charles, when you mentioned that.
Yep.
And just in general terms across all months.
Yep.
Versus that specific quarter, which seems to be the issue.
You're
Yeah.
referencing
Q3, Q4 of 2023.
okay.
The rest, they're pretty much in line with it. Actually, 2024, if you look at the trend, has been lower than 2023. But that quarter was 50% of the whole 2023, which is odd. It just stands out.
And I think that also was something mentioned too. Wasn't there about, that was about the time that the Manami turnover came?
That's what I was gonna say, so when you got the money turnover, you had more townhomes added.
Again, water bill is water bill.
Mm-hmm.
These are for the items, but again, the invoices went down, I think. So we were going with the logic of we've added more townhouses, which never to the tune of 5 times as much. But if we went with that logic, then in January, it would have continued. But in January, it dropped. So the spike was very specific to Q4 2023. So something happened there that
You saw the consultant, documents that Julian put together and that we sent you?
the ones that you said, Frank, I tried going through them and I could not assimilate that this weekend. But I already have from the invoices, I got the actual invoices that you sent me.
Yeah.
I got those invoices and one by one entered them in Excel and I have them trended out and comparison and all that. That is what we were charged and that's what I'm going against. That's what I'm going by. It's, those invoices said, this is the usage, this is the amount we charged you, month to month, 2023 versus 2024, and I did all those comparisons. And there is a spike. Happy to show it, I sent it. It's in the most recent email that I resurfaced again. It's there, the comparisons of that month. It goes literally to $1,000. No month ever goes beyond 600. These were 1,600, 1,300, and 1,300.
So, this is something that's being, worked by accounting, so Jeanette is the person that's working with that. And she's working closely with ECDD. As you can see, the information I provided was what she told me, I'm sorry, my voice, is what she provided. So, Jeanette is on vacation these days, so when she comes back, we can have her double check.
Well, the last I heard from Lauren is, this was because Jeanette did check.
Mm-hmm.
And she came back with what ECDD said. And that's when I said it does not make sense what they are saying.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to push back with what ECDD is saying and really investigate it further because what they're saying does not make sense. The bill would have continued to go up or stayed at 1,000
We're stable.
or stayed at 1,600. It dropped 500. That entire 2024.
Unless this was an irrigation overuse or there was, I mean,
Why don't we take that why don't we look into that a little bit further? Because I saw some of the email back and forth, but, and I know, was it Jeanette? Someone went in and looked at the audits, but, let's dig into that a little bit further. I certainly would be interested in hearing more about this too.
Okay, great.
All right.
Thank you. Let me know if you want any, clarification on what I said.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. And then in our discussion item, let's go in order. We have the financials. You have a copy of your financials.
Yes.
I don't know if you have any right, any,
We have questions?
okay.
Can we go first through the bill of revenues and expenses? Some are just clarification, others are trying to understand what it says. You have it?
Page are you on?
Oh,
It's in the packet?
well, I put it on to Excel, so.
Oh, okay.
It's in the monthly that you send,
The financials.
the financial, it's in there.
Okay.
It's the one that's so.
This, okay, page
Well,
six.
no, that's your actual versus budget.
Mhm.
No,
Either
it's the
one.
one, no, the next one. Right back there. That's your schedule, right? It's your
Can you look revenue?
2024 and 2025 is what it should be reflecting.
It's page 1 of 3, 2024.
Page what?
1 through.
Oh, okay.
You got it?
Yes.
Just a quick question on, and I'll go top down. So the first one is owner assessments, just curious, July through October, so it should be 17,132 monthly. And July through October fluctuated. I was just curious why there was that fluctuation. When you sum it up, it ends up being that. But there is a fluctuation, I'm just curious why that was.
It's July 2024,
July 24 through October
is
24.
that when people don't pay on time? So if they don't pay on time, it's gonna go.
And so then you say that goes on the
And
next.
then if you notice, after that, you have, in August, it's 18,000, so probably they did pay their.
Okay, so that
Okay,
is.
so that's
It
the
wasn't good,
average.
2.5 to 3% have not paid for delinquent payments.
Perfect. All right, the next one is recognize reserve funds,
Okay,
or recognize reserve revenue. What's the -55? I'm not.
that would be your payment from your operating to your reserves.
Okay,
So typically that's done.
so that's the move. Thank you, perfect, thank you.
So that's your reserve contribution, which is moved out of your operating. All the money from your homeowner assessments goes into your operating account and then gets funneled into your reserve accounts.
Okay, all right. All right, so then you guys stop in between, I'm gonna go to landscape, do you have anything in between? Nope, nope, okay. Landscape, I saw the $900 credit, thank you very much, Denise, we appreciate you following up on that. So we saw that come in, then the next question is on, hold on, let me try my. So landscape 2024. Okay, so for landscape 2024, we had two work that began, we had work that was done in April for 38. I think on the invoices. And then we have another, but.
It's a last year.
That's just. So here's more of a question of how it falls and how we're gonna handle that. So for the first invoice, it was charged to the actuals of April. That's good, 38.83. Then there was an invoice for 8,000. But the invoice was 8,900, but you gave us a credit of 9,034.
It was 8,934.
That came in February. So because the work started in December,
Mhm.
but I guess it didn't finish until January, February, then the payment is done February. So it's hitting February. So here's our question.
Okay.
Our budget for that line item last year was $10,000, of which we used 3,883. We would have been below like $2,000.
Okay.
That additional one. But since we didn't use it, and this now comes over to this year, it's gonna take away from our 2025 budget. So the question is, and that's the question that the Michelle, you wanna?
I know we look so alike.
So the question is, what do we do with the excess budget that was there for that wasn't used? Does that come over to 2025 to be used for that?
Yes, you can use that.
Okay.
As long as your fund is still, yeah, your fund is fine.
Well, the end of the, so how does it show that we have that money to use in this budget? Because right now, we're gonna be over by the end of the year for sure. And we're going to be doing one installation. We know we're gonna be doing one or two more, but where does the money come from?
You have an item, a line in your reserves that says, landscape others. So you're gonna see like 2024, you have landscape others, those you can use also, even though
But
those reserves.
Well, that's
Yeah.
this,
And if your question is like, no, I mean, I think we're seeing that too. You can show an overage of spend on landscaping from your reserve this year, taking into account you underspent last year, so you're using some of your last year's funds. That's the same case of you can, since you only allot a certain amount of, 10,000 for landscaping, if you wanted to say, some other surface areas might say, our landscaping is actually fine, we don't want to touch it this year or the next 3 years, and we want that to build up. So on the 4th year, we can do a $40,000 landscape changeover.
But normally, the way we've been, we're definitely gonna be using $10,000, it appears. Constant. So where will it show in the reserve how much we have from the previous year?
Well, we can do a tracking system. The issue that lines up is you look at your annual at the end of year and where that lies on where it was expected to be. As far as when we look at the expenditure tracking when we look at the actual reserve study, where it says we should be versus where you are. And right now, as we know that where you should be to where you are there's a difference, right? I can't remember exactly, but if your account should be at 90,000, it's at 70,000. So even if you don't use that money, you're technically still short. So you shouldn't use it. You can use it, but then that can look into a bigger issue when it comes to the two larger projects in the future, which is your roof and your paint. So just making sure that you always are funded for your roof, and paint typically comes as a priority over the using the funds for landscaping, as long as you're not out of community standards.
Does the 55,000 that we just talked about that got taken from expenses into the reserve fund, does that include the 7,000 that was not used? I don't know, the 7,000.
No, because that is that's what your budget annually allots. Your annual, but when we look at your, running that 2025 budget or that core budget, you said out of your total allotment of assessments, we are going to put 55,000 into reserves. Does not matter how you use those reserves that year or the following year, that line is moving 55,000 over into that account.
So for landscape, is there a way to identify how much we would have from the previous year to use for the existing year? From 2024 to 2025, we need to know how much money, we have 10,000, but we really have more than 10,000.
So we have 11,917 for 2024.
Yes, we are planning to start a reserve tracking for service areas basically for all of our portfolios. We're starting that with CROA, and we just started that a month ago. And then once we get our new finance manager SAT, they're in screening right now, so we might have them as early as next week. And that'll be a project that they'll own a sheet of reserve tracking. So it'll just always show what you have spent in the past. That doesn't necessarily throw that allotment in this year, but what it does is that this year, if you're looking at spending 12,000, it can be notated that you underspent last year and you can spend this year. That line doesn't necessarily change, but it's just a tracking to show the justification of the overspend.
So you wouldn't be able to get, so 2025 has 10,000, right, budget to use. 24 was short, over in a sense, 7,000,
Okay, yes. Mhm.
because we ended up not using it. We can't get the 7 plus the 10,000 and distribute it for this year.
No, you can. You can.
That's-
I'm
that's
just
what
saying,
everything-
it's not gonna show up in a number as that line item is now in a surplus of 7,000. It's going to show that your main reserve account may be in a good standing of over 7,000 because you didn't spend on certain lines in there. Now, if you're looking good for the future for your roof and your paint and everything else is funded appropriately, then you can fight for I don't want to say fight, you can use the justification that we underspent last year for landscaping, thus we can overspend this year. And that can be notated when you're requesting to pull to do a project.
So you're saying it really, even though we can use it for the landscape,
Mhm.
it's not really going under the budget for 2025 line.
Correct.
It's just gonna be somewhere else where we know it's there.
It's staying in your reserve total value,
Going into the reserve. Okay,
because your reserve is just one pot, it's not lined out. I mean, it is, but it's not actually separated out. Like when we see,
Like it's not allocated for particular.
yeah, like in the annual operating budgets, when we pay every bill, those separate lines are there. And we see a very, that live dollar amount, how much you have for each item. The reserve's not gonna work like that because it's just that large pot of money, and we reference your reserve study on how to appropriately spend, with the main goal being that you always have enough funding for your extremely large projects, so that way you don't have situations when it comes to those roof projects or paint projects.
Okay, and then you have speaking of that, they have a landscape project, that is $5,000. 788, which is the next, sorry, project that you will be doing.
Yes, we've all agreed upon that, correct?
Right. Okay,
Yes,
so
yes, that's the go ahead.
Okay,
but we did provide a condition. So we gave condition with approval, approval with condition.
What was that?
So the condition that we're asking is for either acknowledgement, in writing or in the invoice itself of the protocol for the post installation. So and I'm only gonna speak for myself and whatever committee members that wanna give their take on it is. But what I've experienced from my own and from what I've seen is that the new repaired or the new plantings, and you take one out and replace it with a new one. The care that needs to be given to plants post installation
Mhm.
is not necessarily followed. It's not followed. I haven't seen it with anything in my yard.
So sprinklers have gone on a consistent basis.
So the sprinklers are gonna do what they're always scheduled to do, but when you put a new plant in, it requires additional care, more watering than usual.
Yes, yeah.
It may even require nutrients, it may require fertilization. There's special post installation or at installation care that needs to be given.
Yeah, typically with irrigation, we do have a new planting schedule, which is different from your normal irrigation schedule.
It would have to be in all the buildings, right? Because you have replacements everywhere. Well, I'm just able to speak for mine. So I sent a picture of the grass that was planted outside of the sod that was placed outside of my house.
Amazing.
And the sod was not so bad to begin with. I was surprised that they were spending money to do that one. So they replaced it and now it's hay. It's hay. And so and I understand there's pressure issues, but I don't see those issues in other areas right around the grass. So there's other grass there that's just fine. So obviously when you first plant it, it requires addition.
Mhm.
And it doesn't look to me that anybody's paying attention to when they replace something, that the proper upkeep is being done for 30, 60, 90 days.
Okay.
I had to manually water my trees so that I don't lose them for the third time.
And yeah, irrigation, especially on island, is something.
But my question is, the schedule to irrigation at one point, I think it was 2 days a week, but now I see it's 3 days a week, Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. So when new plantings are done, before we go ahead and issue the, okay, to do the new plantings, we need to know when the irrigation is going to be coming on. It's going to have to be more than what the norm is.
And there's monitoring that I don't know, there's more watering, there's monitoring, doesn't seem to be happening because if it was, then the new replacements wouldn't get to the point that they get.
Understand.
I can't do anything about it, right? I mean, I can sit there and water it, but I can't do anything about it. But Exquisite can by looking at it and realizing I'm having a problem with irrigation or doing this or that, but it's just left to some devices, how it seems to me.
So I know that there is often, whenever I see things like this, we do challenge the warranty if plants die because of what you're saying, you know, they're just not being watered, they weren't planted correctly. They are, or sometimes it's the same plant was planted and then dies again, so we need to try a different species because that species isn't working well there. And we are actively challenging that and getting plant reinstallments at no cost to the community because if in those specific instances. That is something I'm always watching and I'm at every park and property once a month to review those and check in on those. So I'm gonna keep a closer eye and
The sun specifically is an issue.
Yeah, and the once a month is really not going to, you know, you have 1 month and then another month and that time might pass. They come out so often.
yeah, well, that does help though, as far as when plannings are planted and aligning and upholding the warranty expectations. Yes.
It helps, it definitely does, but I'd like to see them doing more monitoring of. I've had experience with people who have communities and they do installations and the monitoring all those new installs is completely different than what I've seen here.
I do have a question. In the proposal, it says seasonal flowers, perennial and annuals are not included in this warranty coverage. So I know we've gone in Island Village to go ahead and install something with color. So they're annual, perennials.
Perennials replace them every year.
But these are not, it says, are not included in the warranty coverage.
Does it say annuals and perennials?
That's what it says. Seasonal flowers, perennial and annuals are not included.
That's,
So he's not putting those.
yeah, I was saying, you're not getting any, and all of your invoices don't have line items that are lined out as seasonal flowers. So that is more of a generalized warranty listed out there, but they're not going to warranty any types of seasonal flowers are the ones that we're changing out 4 times a year. And they're not gonna warranty those because they know that they're gonna fade out. They're planted for cosmetic purposes that are known to die, and that's why they're not covered in the warranty. Your no service area has seasonal flowers in them, correct?
No, but that's why I'm trying to figure out why they put that in there.
It might just be journal.
It is, it's a generalized.
Except for he's putting red pandas and
Blue days.
blue days. Which are not,
No, I'm just wondering.
yeah, it's part of the warranty.
So it is under warranty.
Your pentas and blue days are under warranty.
Okay.
Even if they're perennials and they're flowers,
Right,
but they're not lined as a seasonal flower.
Oh,
So that,
okay, all right.
So from the perspective of the invoice that was getting approved in the precondition of posting, what's the next step on that?
Now it has to go to the board because it's over $5,000. We present it to the board either in the workshop and then to the board meeting. As soon as it's approved, we give them the okay to.
Oh, no, but what I'm asking is, what happens to our request? The request is to have something from Exquisite, either in the invoice or otherwise, stating that the proper post-installation care is going to be taken, because the observations that it has not. So before we continue to spend money on installs,
Mhm.
we shouldn't wait for something to die to then say, okay, it's under warranty, let's take it, and then let's replace it. It's, can we put the proper proactive measures in place to do the proper monitoring?
I mean, it is listed there. If you as a committee would like to propose something in writing, then we can look into that. What was you have verbiage?
Yes. No, it doesn't have to be exactly, but that's what, and we can talk about that, but that was just ideas. And it doesn't have to be right now, we just wanted you to know that we have good ideas in place. The,
Or as
The
long as it's
basic-
an insurance when the plans are done, or
and the shots of there is.
have to be watered at the very minimum.
I mean, they're very expensive trees that were placed in my house. I watered them. I had to Google them myself. Look what the care is post installation and on a daily basis water them. I shouldn't have to do that.
No,
We
that's
should be-
another area where if they die and I have a resident saying they're dying, I'm like, let it die, because then I'll get it replaced under the warranty. And if that means it happens 2 times, it then starts to have a financial impact on the vendor, and then they're going to make sure they remedy it. In that sense, I mean, this is partially stated in the warranty. We could have these things changed, looked at being changed. The issue is this is more of an oversight or like proper watching of it and reviewing of it, both from the vendor and just from on our end, which I can say we're going to look at monitoring the new plannings closer.
And maybe if there is something that a homeowner can do to help, like
Make them.
go ahead and water it, make them water it.
They need,
Give them a notice and say, we just planted this in your house. This is our schedule for watering, but
Give it a bucket
you
extra.
can give it, yeah, something like that. That would also be helpful.
And
we
post
didn't-
installation instructions.
Yeah,
We could probably do that, just a reminder, there's new planning, please help out your plannings.
Yes. Put it on the
Yeah.
door, put it on the post-it note.
Yeah, and communication.
and not to belabor it, just the other reason why it's important is because even if it survives, if it's not a healthy survive, then what is the real long-term health of that? I've seen it with the sod in my backyard. It doesn't take well in the beginning and it's always, it lives, but it's like, it's not strong. So the idea is to make it a strong installation.
You have to take into consideration also the soil where they're planted. The soil that we have here is not the best one. It's more sand. So there are conditions that don't let every plant grow. We have to take that into
And of course, the
consideration.
construction doesn't help the environment either.
So that's a question left over from our last meeting, was that he was gonna do a soil test, particularly with my trees, I don't know with others. Have died so many, right? So he did a soil test and according to him, there was no issue with the soil. So soil should not be an issue.
I have a question on the proposal. It says sod installation. Now, on all the other areas where we're putting plants, it identifies the address, but for the sod, it's just overall. Is there any way?
I'm sorry, did you say something, Sue?
Yeah, excuse me, I don't have to leave the meeting
Okay, all right, I'll catch you up later.
later.
Okay,
Thanks, Sue.
bye.
It's a great point because $5,000 worth of sod.
This is the way it's.
Some of it should have been under warranty, I would have thought, because some of it died really quick. Like a part of your
Yeah,
house.
for these, it's all the plants, which is great. It's all the addresses, but when it's sod overall, and the one previous was the same way.
Great point.
We can request an itemization of the song. We can do
Yes,
that.
yes, that would be great. Yeah, because
Because that's a lot of money.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's everything, I mean, it would be difficult. Everything else is itemized out per address.
Yeah, he usually kills it last night.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for listening. Enjoy the continue.
So we're good for the estimate
We're good.
with those small.
Yes, if there's things that you can do, that would be good.
You think that'll go under, what is it Wednesday, there's a? No, I'm thinking the next one.
That would show up on the board workshop, which is on there
The
for
next,
on April
Okay.
9th. Nice.
Is there any analysis done by Exquisite or yourselves? Where you look to see if any of the things that we're paying for, the new proposals are plants that had already been planted before and are being replanted? If there's repeat of the same area being dying, planting, but we're paying for it? Is there any of that reconciliation done?
No, it's hard because then that would be, usually that comes down to like, then it would be an address by address, dossier, because we have to understand what isn't exactly growing in that area. And usually we're learning these more on a community override plants. There are species that are no longer functioning in our community throughout all of Celebration. We just had a large switchover in our jasmine type, ground cover jasmine that's been, Celebration was originally planted with. We're not planting that jasmine anymore. We're switching to a different, it was like Asiatic, and now it's a something Confederate jasmine because the Asiatic is dying out, and we've learned from the plants, if we replant that same jasmine in those same locations, it fails again. So we're not, that's, just one example of, we're not doing that. Or there's some different species of bush that we're no longer putting, anytime we see those and we're pulling them out, we're replacing them with a different one. That's just more, I'd say, we're not doing that on an itemized account, location by location, but we are aware on the overall community of species that we're not replanting, that we're changing out.
It's like a live and learn.
Yeah, it's just one of those, and that is a newer one that we're installing more in this, because it's holding well in our communities. It's flowering, it's giving what more flower. Podocarpus has been, it's a hedge, it's really tight, and grows well. That one, we're putting more podocarpus in, because again, it's showing better longevity. And vibrant, you get that really neon green one. So that's why you're seeing more of those, and we're just not putting those in those, not allowing any species that we've seen fail to show up in the quotes that these committees or boards are seeing. Because we know it will inevitably come back to be our headache.
That's why.
So what, they're shifting a lot of the variety to spots that they know it's gonna do better. Like in front of my house, not all that, it grows like a weed.
Right.
And other spots, there were bushes and they're just dying, so they're gonna swap out or buy new variety to take out.
But that was the whole purpose of the question on the analysis, because you are analyzing how often do I need to keep going into this area? Not just as a community as a whole, it could be one or two houses that they're just in the sun and it's not gonna grow. All right, so the next thing is that I have is the water, we received the credit for all of Treasure Cove, so thank you very much. For that. But hey, every dollar counts.
I was the one that catch that one.
Was that?
Yeah, I was the one that catch that one.
Yes, and thank goodness, because we were questioning the water bill.
Exactly.
So that came to light. Otherwise, we'd still be paying.
There was one I was working, helping, and I found those, and I said, wait a minute, this is,
That's not
right.
right.
Yeah, it's
There
very
was,
good.
yeah,
Thank you.
we got it from the city, we did.
Professional fees. 38.93 in October, what was that for? And 846 in December.
That's just your grand man flat rate fees, yeah.
Engineering, it says.
Oh, engineering fees.
Oh, that's
for
for the four, tunnels that we have not taken over yet. So the engineer has to come inspect them,
Issues.
and then,
Wait. No, this is October 24th.
Yes, that does make sense.
Okay, so say that again.
Karen's Engineering, the engineering firm so when Mattamy is ready to pass over a property to us.
Yeah.
We don't just look at it ourselves, we bring in an engineering firm to review the facility. And that is what you're seeing there, and that's for the 4 townhomes
employee,
on Astoria that have yet to be turned over still.
so the,
And they have not been turned over because of the findings of
That's also this.
Yeah.
Is that something that we budget for?
in professional
Yeah,
fees.
yeah,
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. You're passing that gets passed on to the service area?
I'll need to see on that one.
I would think that's their cost of, like, just built into there.
I don't see how that would be passed on to CROA. So yes, but I can double check on that.
So the townhomes that haven't been turned over to us yet will still have to be done.
So currently there's 4, and that was the engineer, that was the,
he came back in February, and they're still not up to the standards, they still have some issues that they need to take care of. Before we can take, They have
I'll look
28
into see
now.
where that's supposed to be allotted to. I think it's correct. So I'll look into see. That would just be onto the terms and agreements of TCC and Mattamy.
That's a whole.
Yeah, a lot of, I mean, this is one of those, I'll look into it. It's not something that's probably up that we can decide or discuss. It's probably in, we're yes, yep. As part of the process, when we're the last to receive, it's,
Yeah, kind of like the lights on the bridge.
So it's nowhere in our budget that we were gonna be spending that, or that we would have to. And when phase two comes along, we have to do this for all of phase two townhomes. That's coming out from our budget. To prepare phase two, one would have to be budgeted and
yeah. I mean, it's an easy thing too. We can look, see where were the professional fees for the units that you're currently dwelling in, where were those assigned? Because if it was assigned to the service area as this one in October is, then yes, it's gonna be, all of those will be as well.
so that's a big thing to look into.
Mhm.
Right now, they have 28 items that they have not resolved and 14 resolved from the last inspection. Yes, sir. No,
Can I bring up, sorry, I'm going back up, termite bond? I know last year it was 12,917. So I believe some of that was not paid in 2024, and so that it's coming over into 2025, is that correct?
Mhm.
Biannually,
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay, so that is gonna be the same type of thing as our irrigation. In other words, we're gonna be over this year for termite bond.
That's what we fund it every year.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's funded every year in that sense. If you will have an overage in the year you do not spend, like as far as you'll budget for it every year, but the payments biannual.
Correct, but what I'm understanding is it's 1,076 and 228. So it's gonna be 1,076 every month, which means it's gonna bring us over of our $7,000 annual.
There should be from last year a surplus that wasn't used for that same line because you didn't pull any of the funds last year in it. So the intent would be that that money is what is covering the difference.
So for us, as a committee, how do we approve things that is carried over? I mean, we need to know what we're really working with, not just what the budget says. What's the reality of what we're working with when things go ahead like this?
The budget season, the budget time is when we designate or put monies into the different things that we have, like termite bonds, like, different landscape, that's the time when we
Yeah.
budget.
We have these discussions in our 2025 budgeting meetings with this committee about the termite. And that you had it in the budget for 2024, even though we had no known expenses in 2024 for the termite bond. So knowing that that difference would be a surplus at the end of the year, and that would be used in this year's termite bond. That's why we don't budget the.
The termite bond in 2024 was 12,000. And then the continuation of that termite in 2025 is 6,000. It's not that there is none, there is 6,000. But what's happening is we didn't start charging for that 12,000 in 24 until 3 months in. So those 3 months or 4 months in, so those 3 months of 24 now have to be paid in 25, in addition to the 6,000 that have to be paid in 25.
Which
You're
means.
gonna pay, they don't have Florida Pest, they have terminates,
Okay.
so it's a different.
Nasty.
I mean, nasty, so it's a different, it's not like, Florida Pest, that 1 year they do the treatment and the other year
Oh, okay.
they don't do, no, they have,
My apologies.
yes, they have a different system. But it's $6,000 a year. The thing is that when they were doing it for free basically because Mattamy did not send them and did not pay.
Right,
And they were doing
initially,
it. And
we were covered under the termites, but then when that 2-year line came, Sue and I got a bill from Massey for the whole line. And we went, what?
I guess what we're trying to say is we see a budget there, for the 6,000, because it's about 533 per month. We don't have the budget there, and we did the budgeting for 2025, I guess. We didn't put the 3,000 that still needed to be paid into the budget for 2025. So that 3,000 is gonna have to be like the landscape, that since you didn't use it in 24,
Shifted
but
back
it's a 25, and that has to be taken from the reserve
and shifted.
because it went to Boston.
So did they underspend last year or did they spend appropriately last year?
The 2024 budget was 4,894, and they used 2,853.65. So, well, this was up, it could have been more at the end of the year, this was projected.
Yeah.
But in to 2025, they have 5,099.76. So that should be what they should be budgeting every year. So 4,894 plus whatever increase. Like a 4% or 3% increase.
So in short, what would happen is if you are. There's a few scenarios, it all ends up, this will come out of your operating budget, because this is, termite bonds are always fully out of your operating, so you're not gonna touch your reserves for this. If it was not adequately budgeted because there's an overage from last year that needs to be still paid on, that wasn't budgeted last year, then so basically like an out of scope expense is what it would be into your operating fund. Hopefully, your fund can absorb that. And then that's it. It would just be absorbed and eaten by your operating fund. In the instance it cannot, what typically happens is you just see a deferment of payment to your reserve, so that way you have the funding you're operating to pay for that termite bond. Which still then needs to be acted upon in the future on readdressing the contributions into your reserve, which is usually only done during the budgeting season. To say next year
So we need to make a note to make adjustments.
But they've been budgeted 2023, 2024, and 2025.
yeah, it doesn't seem like it's gonna be, I mean, it seems like this, my tracking, it might be $1,000. That might be paid, but if it was 3,000, but 2,000 weren't used last year, there might be $1,000 in difference that might need to be paid this year that wasn't accounted for in the budget or from rollover of funds from last year. That will just come out of and it'll come out of that line affecting your total operating budget.
Right, we just have to be careful with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we approve another invoice.
Yeah. Yep, be careful on that. Always things to consider that we might start looking into adding in budgets next year is, every time that we send, if there's a bad storm and we send someone to come look at the roofs, there's there's a small roof line that comes from. It's kind of that same, and that you hope that you can stay within that line. So it comes out of the hat.
Okay. The next one is. Total reserve 7440. Do you know the answers? Total reserve expenses in, let's see, November. 7,440, what is that?
I think you are.
Three.
You know. It's hard to see it in that one, it's like we can get something. Just the last,
Okay.
do you see it?
November, it's $7,400.
7440.
Is it the one? No, I see that here.
It's the.
It could be the-
Page is that?
Page 33 after Newton, you have to double check those.
I can double check. If you want to start looking at the next item, I'll look into your actual
Okay, great, thank you.
budgets and see where that line.
The other one's tiny, so. Four quarters. Oh, so the next one is your management report. Shows that there are some work orders for roofing. So for Island Village Way, 200 already paid, 800 pending, it's 1,000. What is it that happened?
Remember when the hurricane that
So
people,
this is breakdowns.
because people not necessarily are here, and when they come back, they need to check because they had a water, or they had stain, and yeah, then they were making shingles.
1858 Island Village?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good memory.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's still left over from that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Right, our root budget is 1,000, so that kind of hits our root budget.
remember, anything now
No, hurry.
that's it's gonna come out of your budget, yes.
Yeah.
No more anatomy, no warranty, now it's service area.
Finance.
Okay, next topic.
Is done? Okay, so the next topic we have is service area accomplishments. And I think, Catherine had some questions.
Okay, the improvement plan.
Mm-hmm.
I get different answers every time I answer this question.
Oh,
Are we gonna be a 720 or are we not gonna be a 720?
We are certified.
Yes.
You are.
Now,
It's not that you are going to be, you
No,
are, yeah.
yeah, no, like,
Mhm.
it's just back and forth and.
No, it's interesting, it's fair questions, it's not come, I know where you're coming from. It's nothing.
So that's a yes. If we have a meeting amongst only the committee, does that need to be recorded, documented, sent in, have somebody there?
No,
No, okay, because last time I got a yes.
If
That's-
management is noted or is informed of the meeting,
So we
then
can, we're getting,
then. Yes, if management's informed of the meeting, then it needs to be a notice meeting.
gotcha.
that's what I had. said.
Understood.
Together.
But we say, everybody waiting when
Yes,
let's
now, if that coffee talk that you're not talking about association business and holding a quorum takes place and you. Any action items that would want to come out of that meeting would still technically need to be brought up and acted upon in a
formal.
formal notice meeting.
Correct.
So if there was,
So can we take the case of the RFP for landscape? If we get together and two of us agree what happened, two agreed, two disagreed. Okay, and we went ahead with the RFP proposal. Did that have to go ahead because it's 2 and 2 rather than a quorum?
There was no quorum, because there was 2 and 2.
So that does
So
not.
that should be 3 children.
to act upon anything like that would need to be done in a public meeting. So if you wanted to then issue it, it should be done.
Okay,
So what reality happened was, it was a meeting 5 of us, just internally. We didn't notify anybody, we just met. Hey, what are the things that we don't understand on the budget sheet? What things would we like to add or ask? And the 5 of us spoke of the RFP. 3 said yes, 2 said no. So
Subsequently.
I sent an email saying, hey, we're wanting to, I don't remember what they both said, we want to pursue an RFP. Independent of what happened after that, would that have been an incorrect way of doing it? If we get together and decide we'd like to be able to have an RFP done,
We technically could not take that as a direct.
okay, So
You
now
have to
we know.
notice it, so the way it has to be done through a noticed, you're basically operating under the same guidelines as quote unquote, the master board. So that has to be disclosed within, I guess it's 48 hours, Jacob, it's still the same.
Yeah,
Notice.
as far as the meeting,
Right, so 48 hours. There'd have to be minutes provided. I don't know if it has to be recorded per se. I don't know if the law, if it's,
it doesn't have to be recorded, just meeting minutes need to be
Okay.
on, meeting
Yeah.
minutes would have.
yeah, so it doesn't have to be recorded, there have to be meeting minutes, but basically, and then how the vote goes. So if 3 of you said yes, 2 go no, then that needs to be documented in the meeting minutes, memorialized and then signed off on.
Okay,
okay, so we did the same thing with the recommendation of the investment. We met, we decided, we talked about what had been shared with us, and we gave a recommendation via email.
So this is where it's a little tricky, because what's happening then is, as long as you are all, and that's why how it can work in the service areas too, is you have. we really then should see an email response from each individual. So we're not just taking word of the chair. So that way we have the documentation of, yes, the service area does do this. Now, technically, your information is getting on a public packet because as if those items are going to the CROA board for approval, then that can be that's your notice to your service area of those types of changes. Because they're nothing's acted upon. They're being notified of it within their larger association, and their larger board has been approving the expense. So in that instance, let's say this landscaping package right here. If that was done on, without a public meeting being held amongst your service area. But we have email record, an email record that the committee approved it in majority. Not just a letter from the chair, but an actual, we would need that approval of
Got it.
quorum. Then realistically, yes, we'd still like to have these types of discussion on a format for your your service area to provide input, just as this meeting is allowed for your service area to be here and provide input and these types of discussions. So it's not closed door conversations. You're covered because of anything in a larger amount. Now, just keep that in mind, of a larger amount that needs CROA board approval, you're going to be covered through that CROA board meetings. As far as the review and allowance of your service area to provide input on those items they can attend, they can be noticed.
So
If you're doing things on a smaller amount, that is, let's say $4,000 out of operating, and that's under the jurisdiction of management chambers and your committee, those things, it's very highly recommended that work take place in a meeting like this. So that way it's a fully recorded discussion.
For which one are you distracted in? For which one? For the, so anything greater, anything that's greater
I think
than,
that that's the problem.
Yes,
if it's less,
then it could be.
Then we can deal with it on a quarterly or a notification.
it would be advised to deal with it in a public meeting.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good.
so for this one that you're talking about now that we're going through, do you want individual emails for this one?
Since you have, how many are in your committee right now? 5?
Four.
You have 4, so you still have,
Even those who didn't, it's already.
yeah, so then typically, this is a great moment where you just say, we'd ask for a motion to approve this by this committee,
Yes,
yes,
yes.
and then we have a
Yes,
second by
Yes.
Esther and a vote. You're all in agreement, so that passes 3-0. So now that has moved forward.
Okay. Very good. Cool.
Do we have to do that once again with the CD, even though the board at its last workshop said it was okay? You said, fine.
That's what we just approved. No?
You just approved your landscape.
Landscaping.
The landscaping.
At the last, workshop, Don had said, Island Village, they wanted some, put their money in.
Yes, like I said, those are, you're covered because it's going on and the notice provided and community input can be made at the CROA level.
Okay, I just didn't know if we needed to do anything further, because
No.
as far as we are all in agreement that the money going to a CD, we just don't know whether, if we can act on, we need to speak to Jennifer, I believe, about seeing if we can put the money into the high yield savings account,
That's our philosophy
a money market.
this
We,
week.
we have not,
CDs.
we have not given her yet. We have given her the,
Yes.
for the CD.
Okay,
We were looking at the recommendation of doing an H1 say, which she just gave us information on.
But they did bring it up
about
that way.
the remaining balance.
Yes.
Of 2%, 3 point
We
something.
just need to know if it was okay, and then we had to talk to Jennifer about where and.
So she provided the information we need to talk about, but that's the thing, right? So now we're gonna talk about, okay, the balance. This is what we'd like to do.
Right, but we have to get together
So
with Jennifer.
You send it to me and then I will process it.
we'll send it to you. Okay, Jennifer already provided the information.
Yeah,
Okay, okay.
yeah, I sent it.
Just the one, yeah,
The specific.
one word of warning is if you do any personal due diligence in going out to finding quotes, the quotes you're seeing as an individual are different than your business account. So the rates do not reflect the same. If your bank says, I can get a high yield savings account at 4.3, If we bank at the same bank, your association, that rate is not available because this is a business account.
Right. No, and that's really honest.
We all think that, we cannot, or we try.
So that seems very good.
According to this, I spoke about the rest of it.
All right, so we'll send you that, that email, and then everybody will be there, and same as the first one.
I'll forward it to Jennifer.
Okay.
Just double check what.
I do have to drop for a 1 o'clock, but if there's anything else that comes up, just send me an email.
Okay, yes, we do have to.
Thank you, Charles.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Charles.
Okay, any other questions?
Okay, about the service area
Mhm.
improvement plan. Which one of these items
CP,
we have to, go ahead.
sorry, motion to approve Island Village Service Area Committee request to invest funds at CIT Bank for a 9-month CD with an interest rate of 4.1% and the amount of $56,178. Okay, so that's on the board's agenda
Right.
this week.
And we're allowed to automatically roll it over.
Yes.
Or do we need it?
And a 3-year auto renewal.
Good. Okay, perfect.
Okay, any other questions?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Service request, community, we go to that, community standards inspections, that's, what is that, the walkthroughs or?
No, community standards is when they come and check if the doors are not painted or if they're missing.
When the inspectors.
If my inspectors come, exactly. And usually if it's something from service area, they will let me know. To see if we're working on it, or instead of giving an evaluation to the homeowner, they ask me and I said, no, we're like, for instance, pressure washing, no, don't send them anything because I'm gonna be pressure washing. Any,
Okay, good.
okay, so.
So they'll normal, it's like normal things that are not in compliance, they would
Mhm.
send you a notice.
Yeah.
If it's things like pressure washing, that's gonna be done in 2 weeks,
That is a project of ours,
okay.
then they consult.
With the service area plan, Charles had asked us, hey, can you give us some feedback on things that you'd like to see? This is before the whole improvement plan. Nothing happened, or at the same time, more or less, really. I think they were getting late at the same time. And he asked us, and we gave a recommendation from the committee we met. And we said, we think these things, there were like 7 different things.
More.
Just curious, so there were service schedules, so this was knowing not the frequency of the services, but what was the target of each of the
I
services.
think that was gonna be happen at this meeting, wasn't it?
We haven't gotten there yet.
Um,
And we're running out.
Anyway, there were some things
The
there.
thing is, Esther, the thing is that I cannot give you a date. And I know that that's what you want. If I cannot compromise with a date, because again, it has to go to the pro board, I just have to prepare different things. I can tell you when it's going to the board, when this project is going to the board this date, how to stay there, and then it should be approved on the meeting of the 28th. Things like that, but when the project is gonna, that's why you have the frequency, we try to do it according to the project frequency. But you want me to give you dates for further,
No, so I have one thing, it's an idea of the month. In other words,
it's
we're
there,
gonna try pressure cleaning in September.
but it's there.
Just in here.
Okay, okay. Okay, this is here now, it says September?
It's always been there.
This has always been like this. This is from when we first started.
But it didn't
And
like happen. No, okay.
Where did this?
Mhm.
Yeah, that was one of these there. Yeah, here's more. This was one that I had and I put on the bottom, the anticipated from the reserve schedules. Excuse me, Esther.
No, no problem. All right, so then we,
Yeah, the one that Elise submitted was, I also have that one. She gave it to us like a year and a half ago.
it was the frequency, huh? Or
This
the-
white one,
Okay.
this is the same one for the price.
So that you know the
range and what we're trying to.
Okay. Yeah,
It should be here already.
so then the question is, okay, I'm not gonna.
I think one of the
Can you bring it earlier, because we know that a lot of residents, not only here, but either in other communities as well, were having a difficult time with
the
the
pressure wash.
in October, November, decided for the pressure.
we asked to do it.
So we're asking.
This year was unusual because we had some different circumstances that happened. Normally, you see, it's gonna tell you they're in fall, it's before that
It
time.
says that they're through November.
Okay.
So we're worried that the same thing can happen again.
The thing is, we have to work also with decorations. The limit time that you have for decoration, because people have 45 days to decorate. So if we're gonna always have a situation, because we decorate for everything, Easter, then after Easter Memorial, then after Memorial, this, and this, you know, so we try to be conscious about not letting it for the last part of that. And we're trying to accomplish that this year, do it before, but I cannot tell you that
I think
specifically.
two of the items in particular that were mentioned in possibly a more detailed explanation of the work that is going to be formed, i.e. pressure washing or something of that nature. And when it's certain tasks that go through, like if somebody puts in a ticket.
Mhm.
It's been very infrequently that the homeowner is notified when that contractor is gonna show up. I have personal knowledge of this.
What kind of,
Like, there was a gutter, and then the people next door in our mutual were not. Well, she was in the shower when we showed up, because nobody told us when they were coming. So thankfully, we were home and said, well, you come on in, it's in the shared area anyways. So we lucked out that time, otherwise it would have been again,
Oh, you mean they didn't even have access?
they would not have had access.
that's the first, because normally when we receive the request, we contact the vendor and we tell the vendor, we give him the information to schedule the visit, not to come and do the work. So,
Only for the gutters, I know I have had that happen twice.
so we need to talk to him, at least.
Yeah.
And he's super nice, super,
Well, he was
super,
really nice.
but he has to let us know and he has to schedule.
Yeah, okay, so that, I'll be.
Yes.
But for the pressure washing along that line as well was an issue because all of a sudden they showed up. And it's like, oh my gosh, I have to bring in my furniture. And then we bought it in and then they didn't come back again. They were just there.
There was a schedule. That time there was a
There
schedule.
was a whole schedule.
It started differently because Michelle.
I know,
Michelle asked for it.
And you had done
we
it.
try, we try to help her with that because she just needed. So it's not always like we're gonna start this way or the other side. It all depends on the vendor. Or if you wanna tell us, no, we want him to start on this area first, if that's what you prefer, but we can tell. But in that specific case, it was because there was a special.
I can't speak for everyone, but I'm hoping that you're gonna use a different power washing
Yes.
company.
Yes.
They
Oh,
were rude. They went to my neighbors and skipped ours.
Yeah.
There was a lot of issues with that guy.
Anything else we'd like to discuss?
Question for you, when you're doing the RFPs for the pressure washer and person, for landscape, you have the RFP and you have that person for 3 years. Is it possible to get some efficiencies by not having to do an RFP every time you have a pressure washer that needs to come out? And that way you can schedule.
Well,
You have to submit that information to the board.
and also we do this, your pressure washing is for all of our service areas,
Right.
not just your landscaping is a particular service area.
You wouldn't be able to get 2 or 3 vendors that service all Celebration townhomes through your RFPs. And these are, unless they do poorly, they get switched out every 2 years or every 3 years. Instead of having to do it 2 times a year, where you have to go through this whole process of sending out an RFP to find the pressure washer per vendor.
Isn't that difficult? Because we use a similar one, we change the dates on it. The difficulty of looking at a 3-year is our service areas are changing in the next 3 years with the addition to Island Village, so that would mean a change in scope on a quote that's already made. What we've seen the performance of the vendors, then, we could issue it, we'd still be in the same situation of looking back. If we don't like the performance of switching them out.
Right. The only reason I'm making that suggestion is because of what I hear that you go through. In other words, you can't schedule something in September because you have to go through this whole process of going through an RFP and finding a person, and then you have to do it again 6 months later again to do the next pressure washing. And so I'm trying to figure out if there's a way that you can not have to go
Their
through that
projects, we have to do it.
every 6 months.
Yeah. Do that for all the reserve, over 10,000. Even if we use the vendors
For
before.
operating, that's,
It's
well, I'll just
just-
wait to see them. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's the only way the board is gonna receive it.
It's a contracted requirement from a management company that we have to do that.
Real quick, I'm gonna sneak one more in. Reserve study, one of the action items left over from them was you were gonna see if it was possible. We're gonna talk to Lauren and legal to see if it was possible, not that we wanna go forward, one understanding, but to see if it's possible to separate phase one and phase two from
From this year's
the reserve
funds.
funds. You're gonna have reserve funds for phase one, reserve funds for phase two, because they come in later. We didn't necessarily want them using our money that we've been putting into it.
Mhm.
And you were gonna find out and come back by this meeting.
Yes, they wanted to continue discussions with Mattamy on the build out of those to see if that's still the plan. And so that's still, since they're developing, not building,
last year-
development, but I'm gonna make a note, to keep looking at that.
Yeah.
So we did pass it on, it's just they're not, since they haven't built out yet.
Right, but it's knowing ahead of time.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes or breaks the decision. It's knowing whether that can be separated whenever they do join.
But it's projected that they're gonna be completed. It's not by the end of this year.
I mean, there's so many more, well, there's
That's
phase 2A will probably be seeing move-ins this year, it will be seen.
Because I know there were buildings.
There are townhomes in 2A, and then there's 2B, so it's just then do we look at, that's just 2A part of that, a part of this, you know, it's.
Yeah. Slippery slope.
I remember those discussions looking on. Like they were not bending.
Oh, that they were not wanting to separate it.
Do you recall how many townhomes they might be in on phase two? I know I saw it somewhere, but I don't recall.
I know, yeah.
Like 80 or something.
In total, it's something,
A
right?
few more than we have.
Yeah, we have 66 and then we saved those for 7.
Yeah, I know it's mostly private homes.
And I know phase 3 and 4, I think are private homes. It's only in phase 2A and B.
Ish.
So when do you think of maybe that you might be?
I'll follow back on this and see, it just doesn't look like it's going, they're gonna separate it out.
And maybe. if-
Because this, yeah, oh, that's right, yeah, they reference this is similar to Spring Lake at 110, 109, 109 over there. And that's all that you'll start to see is phasing in your reserves. So that's why, do they already have phasing in the reserves for paint projects here at the 60? So how you have multiple, it'll just, they're looking at keeping it as one, just adding.
Spring Lake has 3.
Yeah, so Spring Lake out of 110 units has, let's say, a roofing project. It's separated into 3 phases because of the build out of Spring Lake.
Oh, because when they
So,
first started.
Yeah, they finish a section and then
Next
and a year later, they built a section and then a year later, they built a section. So they know that the roofs are not going to be one roof project. It's going to be 3 roof projects. And that's the system that Will Island Village is intended to follow.
Okay.
So if you see those lines increase, it's, yeah, you're not funding. Your roofs will be replaced at a different schedule than those will be. Same term, yeah, same term, different schedule.
So is the reserve broken out that way, or the reserve still remains all one?
It's gonna be broken. When it's, yes.
It'll remain
You're gonna
one
see it.
village reserve account. It will be lined out as phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Mhm.
So we can differentiate. Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
Now, landscaping won't, like that landscaping line of 10,000, since that's not in phase, unless they do a full out change. Typically, that number will be and that'll go up because you'll have more
Right,
on there, but it's not gonna be phased out as landscaping
yes.
ongoing.
just to have more money for.
Yeah, it'll be a bigger budget line because it's a bigger property.
More money, but expense too.
Always. More problems.
Okay.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
We just had to get back to you on the money and.
Yep.
Right, so we can make a motion to adjourn?
Motion, give it a second. All right, we adjourn.
There we are. That's one thing I had a question for you, Rose. I'm not sure how many committee applications you've gotten in for our service committee.
I think I've got